to another video, and in this video we are looking at Sumi ink. It's a traditional form of painting believed to originate in China 6,000 years ago, brought to Japan in the 10th or 11th century. So it's a very, very old art form. And I was lucky enough to be able to go to a workshop ran by Junko who is a phenomenal artist. I will link all her social media down below. But she took us through the art form, and set up for us with traditional supplies, and with the Sumi ink grindstone and the block that you use to grind up, traditional brushes made from raccoon hair, and rice paper, two different varieties, a cheaper variety that I just showed you there to practice on, to get used to the different strokes, how much water to use, that sort of thing, and this higher end quality paper. It's really quite beautiful. She was all in user error, as I am very heavy handed when it comes to this sort of supply, so I need to learn to let up a little bit, to be a little bit lighter when it comes to the amount of water usage, comes to the amount of ink. But I did create some very beautiful pieces, and Junko stamped them very beautifully. It means love, I do believe, and it's a really lovely setup. So I think it's time I finally use this Sumi ink sketch set. So I've had this set for years and never used it. It is a problem. I think we all do a little bit of art supply hoarding, but it was in my video that came out over a year ago now, where I went through all my ink supplies. So I'll link that if you're interested. I also have these brushes that definitely look traditional. I did buy them on Facebook Marketplace, and I've only ever used one of them because I want to keep them quite nice for as long as possible. It is synthetic hair, I am sure of it. I haven't had any way to test that, but just from the way it moves, it feels very much like a synthetic brush. It doesn't hold water half as well as the animal hair ones we used in the workshop, but it is still quite a nice brush. There are a few flaws with it that I will bring up, but off the bat, so you can see this Sumi ink setup is quite different to what I had in the workshop. In the workshop, I had the block that we used to grind up on the grindstone, and we ground that up and then carried some over to a bowl to mix to different shades of grey with water. With this, there isn't that grindstone, it is a pad, and I wasn't quite sure how to use it, how to apply the water to it. It didn't really want to carry over, though I do have a few different goes of things as I'm practicing here, trying to make it work. This paper I am using is mulberry paper. Now, I didn't have any rice paper, but this paper, which was in my mum's craft supply stash, had very similar texture, thickness, and overall appearance, so I thought maybe it could be comparable. Now, one of the first things you'll notice there is I put a piece of felt beneath the painting. That was one of the things that we learnt in the workshop that I had promptly forgot about till I started painting. Because of the thinness of the paper, it's good to have an absorbent fabric beneath it. Now, you want some of the water to stay, so you can do a little bit of moving around and it will dry nicely in different thicknesses and give it that sort of many textured effect and allow there to be a lot more depth. But you don't want too much water to seep through or a shiny fabric, because then it will blot back onto the page and it will spread and kind of smear instead of keeping to where you've painted it. Now I relearned that very quickly that it applies to the mulberry paper as well. So that's definitely something. If you're using any sort of thin paper, keep some felt beneath it, or another similar fabric. But overall, I would say the mulberry paper is not the best. Despite its superficial appearance to rice paper, there are obviously some missing qualities. Granted, the brush is also lacks a little bit of the maneuverability of the brush from the class, which I don't know whether that's because it is synthetic, but or because it's been used a bit, and I haven't wanted to use the other one, so I do keep going back to the same one. It's more difficult to get finer lines with this one, and it doesn't like to do some of the different techniques we learnt in class, which did make it a little bit difficult relearning. But I did have a lot easier time when I jumped to this bamboo paper. So I imagine other watercolour paper would be quite similar. As I am more used to watercolour paper of a much higher thickness than, say, your mulberry paper or your rice paper, it's a lot easier for me to get the sort of look that I want, that I'm anticipating. But it's not the traditional form, which is why I was trying to mess around with the mulberry paper to get that similar effect. I did quite enjoy the bamboo paper, and I found maneuverability a lot easier. But the other major difference is I don't know the quality of this ink pad. Now, obviously, the one I was using in class was a very traditional high-end block that you grind up. It is made from soot or charcoal of, I believe, specific trees. In Japan, I forget which ones, but specific trees burnt down and pressed into the blocks that you see. I don't know what the makeup of this pad is, how much it does match the traditional ink, if it is completely different. It does feel very similar, and as I said, there's a lot of user error. I am very heavy-handed when it comes to watery mediums, which is my biggest problem when it comes to watercolor. I just scoop up too much water. I need to be more fine, but it is a work in progress. It is the same problem with this sort of ink, which uses water and obviously ink on the brush. It colors it, and so when you want to get a bit of that lightness, darkness, you need to add more water, and so then I just keep adding more and more water, which is too wet. And then when I want ink, my brush is already wet. I'm not thinking about drying it because I just want to paint. I just want to have fun. And it can lead to some very interesting issues. But as you just saw there, a bit too heavy-handed, trying to get the depth into the leaves there, and then no patience when it comes to letting it maybe dry a little bit before adding colour back in and thinking, that's fine, that's good enough, that'll be fine. But yes, I definitely, for myself, prefer this thicker paper. It is easier for me to understand how it works, because I am used to that. I would definitely like to get some actual proper rice paper in the future, just to see how the ink compares, because maybe the ink is actually quite good. I don't know. So for this next sort of attempt, a few days later, I thought, why don't I try scraping a bit off? That way, if you are going to do that, to be a little playing around, wet it first. If you wet the brush, if you wet the ink, you can scrape stuff off the pad. When it's dry, it's nigh impossible, as you saw. It was just scraping over it. There was barely, it wasn't even like crumbs. It wasn't even like lifting crumbs. So I was just trying to scrape a bit off to see if I could mix it up that way. Maybe it would produce a different sort of ink depository. And then I have my little flower palette to try and create some different shades of grey to keep track of. I'm not very good at that, so I think they end up getting a bit muddled anyway. It is a very good habit to get into. I definitely recommend doing that. But just be a little bit, I don't know, maybe don't rush so much. Maybe that's my problem. I just like to slap. Come on, let's paint. Let's go crazy. And I don't think too much about the deeper aspects. I'm just like, yes, let's just go. Let's just create like crazy and see the different shapes we can make. But when you're working in monochrome, those different shades are super important to capture. You want your darks and your lights. You want to make sure that they are present and you keep track of them. But I don't know. I'm also having a lot of fun with what I'm doing, so it doesn't matter too much, so long as you're having fun. I mean, that's the main reason most of us do it, right? We just want to create art. We like the messy process, which is why I prefer, your traditional style arts to digital arts. I enjoy being a little bit messy. As you can see, there are little drops flicking all over the page, here and there and everywhere, and just going a little bit wild, just seeing, all right, what can I do next? What's the next step? What is the next creation? And there you have me smearing it all together. What is the point of that? I don't know. I've had a spur of the moment idea. We're just going to go crazy and colour in the whole background in not even a flat shade of grey. It is mokuti. It is a mix of different shades there. And why not? Why not? Once it's dried, I guess it could be a background, which is what we're doing here. We're having another go at that scraping technique, which I do think is a bit better than just working from it straight off the pan. I do think scraping a bit off, if you have the same sort of setup as that, definitely works better. Definitely gives it a bit more usability. It's a bit more malleable in that sort of sense. So obviously we're going for a quasi-traditional style. We're imitating the art that we would see. It's another sort of cherry blossom tree, much like the one that I did in the class. I had a lot of fun with that, so I thought, why not try and replicate it on the bamboo paper? Look, it's a lot of fun. If you are able to get your hands on some Sumi ink at a reasonable price, or if there is a workshop in your area, I definitely recommend trying it if you've never tried it before. I'm kicking myself for taking so long to use this set. So maybe that's another lesson to learn. If you have an art supply, doesn't matter what it is, but if you're holding on to it for some reason, maybe stop. Maybe just use it. Maybe let yourself be free, be wild, be a little crazy. Why not just let's stop sitting on things. Let's develop our skills in an array of sections. Let's just have fun. I know I spend too much time worrying about the end result, and I forget how much fun I have in the middle. It doesn't matter if the end result's not good. How is the end result supposed to look good if you've never practiced it? How are you supposed to just come out with perfect Sumi ink paintings the first try? Like all things, you have to practice. And yeah, as I guess a bit of a warrior, what if I'm wasting my supplies? I take too long to appreciate things. But at the same time, I probably wouldn't have known how to use this properly if I had have used it before the class. So maybe there's a slight method to my madness. But all in all, this video is basically just, more than anything, just a hopeful reminder to you guys that the creative process is different and varied for everyone, and to never stop creating. Just keep pushing yourself, trying different mediums. Try the same medium in different ways. Maybe you need to look at it in a new light. Maybe you need to scribble in a direction you haven't before. And, workshops are a lot of fun if you can afford them. They're definitely fun, and you can communicate with some like-minded people. I definitely recommend that as well. But all in all, that is going to do it for this video. I hope you had a good time. I hope if you didn't learn something, you got a bit of a message out of this. And I hope you take some more risks with your art and have a bit of fun. But thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.